So this week's parsha is the first parsha in the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is called Vayikra, and it's the first parsha in the entire book. As you know, this is my favorite chumash, and it's available online and other places. So go and grab your copy. The beginning of Vayikra, beginning of the whole sefer, talks about Korbonot, sacrifices, and many will ask this question. And if you ask the question, I will not accuse you of plagiarizing. I will be happy to celebrate the question with you. Question is, what's the deal with the small aleph? Did you notice a small aleph? Martin noticed it, Carlos noticed it, Rabbi Shmuel noticed it. If you noticed the small aleph, let me know. Okay. And so what's Taka the story? What's the story with this small aleph? So the story goes as follows. One time, we've spoken about the first Chabad Rebbe, and his name was Schneier Zalman, and he lived in a town called Liadi, and he told the following story. So the following story happened with him. His daughter was married to a lovely fellow, whose name I've forgotten, and they had a son. His daughter passed away at a very young age, as was quite common in those days, but the reason is told because she gave away her years, she gave away her life so that her father would live longer. Okay, that's the story. So what? Okay, so they had a son. So when she gave away her life to her son, to her father, so she told her father, she made him commit to him that he would take care of her son as if it was his own. And so the Alter Rebbe, what is called Alter, Alter means old, or the first, the ancient perhaps. The Alter Rebbe was committed to taking care of his grandson, who was called the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek, that's the name of the book he wrote. There are two books in Jewish history called Tzemach Tzedek, by the way. One of them written like 300 years prior to the second one, and the second one is the book authored by the protagonist of our story. Okay, so Tzemach Tzedek was a little boy, and he went to Cheder. Cheder, as you all know, is the first. Nowadays, Cheder is kind of like Sunday school in a way. But Cheder then was the initiation school. Elementary school was called Cheder. So the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, went to Cheder, and typically in Cheder they teach not from the beginning, from Bereshis, but they teach from Vayikra. Why do they teach from Vayikra? I don't know, but that's what they typically do, and certainly did in those days. So the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, is a little boy, right? And he turns to his grandfather, and he says to his grandfather, either this happened in school hours or it happened outside of school hours while they were reviewing their studies. He turns to his grandfather and he says to him, Tati or Zayda, whatever you called him, Zayda probably said, grandfather, why is the aleph of Vayikra so small? Good question, right? Now you know that the question that you were wondering why the aleph is so small. Now you know that a prodigy of yesteryear asked the very same question. So now you should be very confident that your asking abilities are quite in line with the geniuses of the previous generation. Okay, so now the Alter Rebbe has to answer the question that his grandson has posed him. So the story goes that he went into a dveikus. Dveikus is the Hebrew word Dveikus, and of course that's not how you spell it in Hebrew. That's how you spell it in English. Dveikus, dveikus. He goes into a dveikus. It's like a contemplate. I can't even pronounce the word. A point of contemplation, but it's a deep point of contemplation, where the mind and the soul and mind is less connected to the world than it is physically present. It's more connected to the supernal world. And mind you, I believe, based on my what I've been taught, I believe that such an experience is accessible to all of us. However, I will tell you now that I haven't done the hard work to get to that stage of ability, but I do encourage you all to give it a go. Okay. So the Alter Rebbe goes into a state of dveikus, and he goes and he comes back. And when he comes back, he says to his grandson, that there's another Aleph. There's another Aleph. Where's the other Aleph? So we're going to ask, let's ask, Alan, you're good at multitasking. Can you Google, where is the large Aleph? See if you can find a verse for it. It should be in Genesis somewhere. It should be in Bereshit. It's in the conversation with Adam.
I'm looking.
Sorry?
I'm looking.
Okay, awesome. So Adam has a big Aleph. So the Alter Rebbe told him, this Aleph is a small Aleph in contrast perhaps to the big Aleph that Adam had. Let's see if we can find it. So this Aleph is a contrast to the small Aleph. Okay, so I already have two articles right here in front of me in this regard, and
it says, I think it's the book of Chronicles, where this
right.
occurs.
In contrast, the first letter of the opening word of the book of Chronicles, Adam, also an Aleph, is written in a large, oversized script. That's what this article says here, the same thing. Okay. But I'm trying to find the quote. There's a quote that I'm looking for of this story. I can't find it right now. Anyway, we'll get to it.
Is this the Moses quote?
What?
Is this the Moses quote?
What? What do you mean, Moses quote?
I'm looking at this article that talks about the large and the small Aleph.
So yeah, there's one over here. I mean, there's one that says that that's right. So Moshe is going to fix Adam's Aleph, right? But I'm looking for the story, the actual story. I thought it was going to be in the book that I had in front of me, and I didn't find it, which is okay, because we'll manage.
What I'm seeing is that it has something to do with the fact that Adam had a lot of self-esteem as the first of God's.
That's it.
And so the small Aleph is a counterpart to that. It's instead of high self-esteem, more a sense of humility.
So very good. So now we have a contrasting Alephs. So the Tzemach Tzedek asks his grandfather, what's the deal with the small Alephs? His grandfather went into a dveikus. And then he came out and he told, and here's my wife, hello Chayla. He told his grandson that one Aleph kind of takes care of the other Aleph. The Aleph of Adam is because he was very self-aware, perhaps. And the Aleph of Moshe is because Moshe Rabbeinu was a small Aleph, right? There is a verse all the way at the end of the Torah which says that Va'ish Moshe Onov Mo'oid Mikol Ha'adam. The man Moses was a humble person, more humble than all the other people, right? So what we have here is this moment where you have this kind of dichotomy, call it, where Moshe Rabbeinu is kind of, in a way, fixing Adam's large Aleph. What happened? What went wrong with Adam's large Aleph? What went wrong? He was conceited, and we all know what kind of mistake he made. He went ahead and he ate from the fruit, right? He ate from the don't say an apple. It's not an apple. It wasn't an apple. And so when he went ahead and he made that mistake, so that was him like a kind of, in a way, violating who he is meant to be. And then came Moses, and Moses fixes it. How does Moses fix it? By Moshe Rabbeinu being the most humble of all people, he fixes the Aleph. Okay, so now that's the idea. That's the story. By the way, that's a fantastic story, and we can all celebrate that story for what it is. The story itself teaches us many different things. Many different things. One thing is that when a child asks you a question, you should pause. Take a moment to give it some thought. Okay, it's a cute lesson, right? And the truth is that children are not just young. Sometimes we have elderly children. There are older people around us that are children, whether they're children in knowledge, they know less, right? Like Rabbi Shmuel and I, Rabbi Shmuel knows all about mathematics, and I can't count. Baruch Hashem, I can count, but I can't do advanced mathematics like they teach in College State. So that's, that there's a difference there, right? There's some people, a person can be a child in knowledge, and other people are children in years. We're all children in one way or another. And when our child asks a question, or when someone else's child asks me a question or you a question, we as the answerers need to pause. Pause for a moment. Contemplate the question, contemplate the child, see where the child is coming from, why that person is asking this question, what's the context of the question? And only then can you give an answer, once you know the depth of the question. Okay, one lesson. What's another lesson? Another lesson we can have is a lesson in humility. What does it mean to have a small Aleph? What does it mean to have humility? So I'll tell you a story, another story, because who doesn't want to hear a story? There was once a Yid. His name was Mordechai. Not Mordechai from Purim, another Mordechai. And Mordechai was given a mission. He took upon himself a mission to go find some friends from yeshiva that he knew, and he wanted to bring them to meet the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, so this story clearly happened somewhere in the 17th or 18th century, because he's going to go visit the Baal Shem Tov, and he writes this story down, and it's being passed down in the Hasidic community, and we have it today. It's printed in a book, both in English and in Hebrew, and it's available for anyone to read. Mordechai goes and he finds a friend. He finds one of his colleagues, and in their conversation together, Mordechai is trying to introduce his colleague to the lifestyle of the Hasidim, to the mind perspective, to the paradigm that Hasidim have. And so he does it by contrasting who he used to be with who he is now. So what happened? He tells his he tells the guy, and this is written in the story, he says how he thought he was a very big tzaddik. He was sure that he was a very righteous man. He thought he was so righteous that nobody else knew how righteous he was. He thought he was so humble. One day he came into shul, and in shul they were reading a part of the Torah. Which part were they reading? They were reading the verse that says, "And the man Moses was the most humble man of all time." It said, the verse says, I think, that on earth, and it's understood to mean of all time. So he said, "What do you mean? How can Moses be the most humble person? What about me?"
That's good.
What about me? Let's do it again, right? Let's do it again, because that's a very good story. Here comes this big dude. He turns up in shul and he hears how the Torah reader is reading a verse that says Moses was the most humble guy ever to live. And his initial reaction, his knee-jerk reaction is, "What about me?" Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's a great story. Say that again, Alan?
I know people like that.
You know people like that. Okay, good. We all need to know someone who thinks they're more humble than Moses. Okay. Anyway, the story continues how he's trying to find, he's trying to, the Yiddish word is parentfer. He's trying to excuse God for writing in the Torah that Moses is more humble than Reb Mordechai. So he says, Moses might have been the most humble person, but look, it's written in the Torah. Everyone knows. Nobody knows about me. I'm so humble that nobody knows. And in another comment, in another way, he said Moses was so humble, but his wife knew. My wife doesn't even know. Okay, look, we can all laugh at this guy, right? It's funny. We can easily laugh at this guy, but let's find that guy in us. Yeah, in a way, we can find that guy in us. So the typical situation is you walk into shul, you walk into services, and you're a guest in that shul or whatever, and you might think for a moment, hey, they're about to read the Torah. They're probably going to give me an aliyah. They're probably going to call me up. What do you mean, like what? Like, come on, I'm Chaim. Of course they'll call me up. And then it's aliyah 1, and then it's aliyah 2, and then get up to aliyah 6, and you're wondering, like, no, when's it going to happen? They're probably going to give me maftir. They'll give me the haftorah. And then they do haftorah 2, and they're like, okay, maybe they'll ask me to daven to lead Musaf. I'll be the chazan. Who knows? They don't ask you to do that either, right? And so that's what about me? And that's really like a lesson perhaps that we can take from Moses. We can take a lesson from Moses that we have to find a certain level of humility on our own. One of the things that it says about Moses is that Moshe Rabbeinu knew his milas and he knew his chisroinus. Those are the Hebrew terms. I'll translate them. He knew what he was good at, and he knew where he wasn't great. He knew where he could demand more from himself, and he knew where it's not worth spending the energy. That's also a lesson that each of us can take from Moses. In every point of our lifestyle, we can always say, like, can I be better? Can I do a better job? And there's a conversation. Well, maybe, or maybe not. My apology. My phone is ringing. I'm sorry. And we think, like, in this area, really, I could be a better person. And maybe we could be. Maybe we could be. We have to find the areas where we could be a better person, where we could be the better person, and do better in those circumstances. Taking a lesson from Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the most humble of all people, because he knew where he was good, and he knew where he had to improve. Okay. Comment number 1. Comments or questions on part 1 of today's conversation. Someone's going to have something to say. Anyone?
I'm too humble to contribute at this point.
Okay.
Oh, that was going to be my line.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay. So let's talk about something else. Who's ready to talk about something else? Change the conversation. As long as we don't have to talk about being more humble, I'm in. This parsha starts talking about sacrifices. Now, sacrifices is a massive conversation. Of course, there are the humanitarian workers who are going to get on top of the temple rooftop and shout that we have to cancel sacrifices altogether because it's cruel to animals. And I don't have much what to contribute to that conversation. So we're not going to talk about it. If you'd like to talk about it, go ahead. But I can't participate. But I can talk about other things in the same conversation. So let's go like this. Why do we give sacrifice? And what is the sacrifice that we've got to give? And how do we give a sacrifice today in 2021 when there is no temple in Jerusalem that we all flock to 3 times a year? Well, there is a Rashi. Put your hand up if you remember what Rashi is. Anyone? Okay. Oh, we lost our friends from North Carolina. Alan, maybe you want to go over there and help them with their internet.
That's a long way.
I'm sure. What is it? Probably 40, 50 miles from you, right?
Yeah, it's probably 45 minutes to an hour, maybe.
It is. Okay. Maybe you just wait till after the class to help them out. So there is a Rashi, and Rashi, of course, is the most basic and fundamental explanation on the Torah. And there is a Jewish tradition which tells us that Rashi's writings were written with divine providence, part 1. Rashi further tells us that he is writing to the 5-year-old. To a 5-year-old, the most basic beginner studier of the Chumash can learn with Rashi, and like that he'll be able to understand what's going on. And here's a joke, because we have to say a joke. Who was the first person to learn Chumash with Rashi? Someone could have a good answer for this one. Okay, I stumped you. Rashi's father. Say it again.
I said Mordecai.
Mordecai. Okay, cute. Good. It's Rashi's father. Who else learns Chumash with a 5-year-old? Rashi is just an acronym for his name. His name is Rabbi, Reish for Rabbi, or Rebbe, Shloimo Yitzchaki. Okay, he lived somewhere probably in the 15th century era. I'm guessing. It's a guess. Someone will Google it and tell us. In the meanwhile, Rashi comments regarding the sacrifices. He tells us, why do we give a sacrifice? Because Hashem says it's a reach, because the verse says it's a reach nichoyach, a good smell. And so to that, Rashi comments that this is Hashem is saying, it's a good smell to me that they're doing what I asked. Nachas ruach lefanai sha'al marti v'naisa retzoini. It's a good feeling for me, Hashem says, that I asked them to make the sacrifices and they're doing it. Okay, comment 1. What else is sacrifices in Jewish lifestyle? What are the sacrifices? So by the way, number 1, you should know that the rabbis told us now that we do not have, it says somewhere in the Talmud, that now that we don't have anymore the Beis HaMikdash, the temple, the prayers have become in place of the sacrifice. Just like in the temple, there was a daily sacrifice for the morning and a daily sacrifice in the afternoon. So also there is a daily prayer that we do every morning, and there is a daily prayer that we do every afternoon. So the astute listener is going to say, what about Ma'ariv? What about the evening services? Okay, good question. If you don't ask, I'm not going to tell you the answer. Let's move forward. So what?
I have a question.
Go for it.
So in the good old days, the first temple,
Yes.
were there prayers, sort of standard prayers like we have now, or was it just sacrifices?
That's a very good question. And you know what? How I know it's a good question? I have two ways to know. Number one is because I have the same question myself. Good. Okay, so that's since I am. What about me?
You're so humble.
Exactly. All right. But number two, I know because the Rambam, who is Maimonides, who is the first codifier of Jewish law, writes. He writes out. Not only he writes out the prayer book, he writes it out too, but he writes out the process of prayers in the temple. And so that answers to me. We welcome back, of course, our mountainous friends. Welcome back, Barbara and Martin. I hope your internet is working a bit better. Oh, now we can say it again. Welcome back, Martin. It's nice to see you again. I hope you're okay. Did you guys get a tornado over there? Is that what happened?
We're having some audio challenges.
Okay. Well, you'll be delighted to know that at the end of tonight, we will hopefully be able to upload this class onto YouTube, so you won't miss a bit.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
All right. So what happens next? So we're in the middle of answering a question to catch you guys up. Alan asked, was there prayers in the time of the temple? And the answer in my vast amount of knowledge in how I understand it to be is that there was a certain level of prayer, but it wasn't as organized and as mandatory as it is today. It seems like it was less of a thing. That's what it seems like. I'm sure, like for example, tefillin, putting on tefillin has been the thing ever since for sure, Isaac. We have recorded in the Torah how Jacob, Yaakov Avinu, our forefather Jacob, put on tefillin every day. So that's recorded, right? So now usually we put on tefillin when we daven the morning services. So that already, when did that start happening? I don't exactly know. We'll have to investigate it, but we have to continue to investigate it, better said. But the general answer is that there was a certain level of prayer, but I don't know to what extent. For sure, on the high holidays, there were prayers. There were different blessings that people had to say, etc. By the way, if you don't like the noise of my chair, you know what to do. Send me a new one. Okay. All right. No, I'm joking. Don't send me a new one. It's fine. Okay. So where are we up to? Prayers, sacrifices, Korbonot. Here we go. So the prayers were established instead of the sacrifices because we don't have the temple. What is happening during prayer that replaces the sacrifice? So we're lucky that in Hebrew, sacrifice is korban. Okay. In English, sacrifice is an interesting word, and we've learned to use it in other ways. Right? Think of sacrifice. You don't always think back to temple times when they slaughtered cows and sheep. You might think about having to forego on something for a better end. That's another use of the term sacrifice. I'm saying I'm not going to have whatever it is, so I'm going to sacrifice having that so that I can have something else later. In Hebrew, korban is spelled kuf, resh, beis, nun. Kuf, resh, beis, nun. And korban is in a way, it's a development of the word krav. Krav. What else is Krav? Aside from Krav Maga, there's another word that you know about Karav, and that is Karov. Karov means close. Krav Maga is a development from first of all, it's modern Hebrew. Second of all, it's a development from the Hebrew term close contact. Maga means touching. Krav Maga means close contact. So that's why it's the Hebrew term for martial arts, right? But what happens there's another way to use the term Krav, and that is sometimes we call an act of war to be Krav. You didn't know that part, right? Okay, I knew that part, and that's why I shared it. Krav might mean war, and so when we go to war, we are doing a level of sacrifice. Did you guys put that two together? Was that easy, or should I elaborate? Okay, we got it. So when you go into war, so elsewhere in the Zohar, that they point out that prayer is a time of war. What is the time of war that happens during prayer? In that moment of prayer, we have to battle. What's the battle during prayer? The battle is of concentration. The battle is of contemplation, of personal investment, of getting involved. When during prayer we focus on to whom we are praying. We focus on to whom we are praying, and we focus on what we're praying about. We battle with something in us that's begging us to stop focusing. You thought that short attention spans was a thing of 2020. Well, it's not. It's a thing that comes when something is important. Something in me says, Chaim, don't think about that. Get away from it. It's too vast. It's too big. And prayer is that moment where we need to battle with the incessant procrastination in a way, but the incessant pull to get away from that which is important and valuable. And that's one reason why prayer is called battle. And that's one reason why prayer is a moment of sacrifice, because we have to sacrifice what's geschmack, what's enjoyable, what's convenient. We have to sacrifice all of that, step away from it, and get involved with the battle of prayer. Part 1. You like it? At this point, we can welcome Mal. Thank you for joining us.
Sorry for being late there.
The enjoyable part is that you're here. So thank you for joining. So what happens next? Crowd, fighting, prayer. There's also a level of sacrifice.
Nearness.
Say that again?
The closeness now, right? The point of, there's a war during prayer, but then the other word, karov, that you mentioned, the attempt to get near to God.
So that's what happens with the sacrifice. That's what happens with the sacrifice, right? When you sacrifice that which is important to you, that which is valuable to you, you come close. When you sacrifice getting the immediate, how do we say it? Nowadays they say if the ah comes before the ooh, it's not good. Something like that. If the that's geschmack, that's enjoyable, comes before the this is hard, this is tough, then there's something missing. But if the struggle comes first, the sacrifice comes first, and that's followed by the enjoyment, the moment of realization of an achievement of a goal, now you've done something worthy. Right? And I think all present can attest to that being a reality from their own lives. We sacrifice lots of different things in order to have certain outcomes. And now that we have the outcome, we're somewhat happy. This that you're not completely happy, I know the answer. Ask me privately. I'm not going to say it out in public. Okay? But there's one more aspect to sacrifice which I want to discuss with you. What's that? What are we sacrificing? What do we sacrifice? And again, we're going to use the term korban from the word karov. We're sacrificing things that are nearby. What's the nearest thing that you've got that's too heavy to carry around?
Time.
Say it again?
Time.
Time. Okay, interesting. I wasn't thinking about time. I'm going to ask you to explain that in a moment. I was thinking about excess body weight is one option. Okay. Another thing, and of course, it's not really about being overweight, which I proudly am. It's more about the consumption. America is the land of consumption, of consumption and waste, perhaps. The things that we take in that we don't really need, the things that we just collect, and they're actually not so important. The things that we spend our brain space on, that we fill our minds with, that aren't actually valuable. Those are the kind of things that when we sacrifice them, we come closer to our goal, but we're sacrificing something that's close to me. My heart wants this item. I want this thing. I want this achievement. But do I really need it? Is it valuable to the end goal? Is it going to get me closer to my final destination? Maybe. And if not, maybe it's worth sacrificing. Food for thought. Another understanding of what a korban is. Sacrifice what's close to you. Sacrifice what you don't really need, but you've got it. Get rid of that and propel yourself forward to a much greater goal. Comments or questions? Professor Reb Shmuel, comment or question?
No, I like the double use of the concept of closeness or nearness. Sacrifice the stuff that's close to you that really isn't all that important, so as to achieve closeness or nearness to God. It's the smoke of the sacrifice rising to the heavens, in a sense, which is what the prayers function as. So I like the duality of the idea of nearness. Sacrifice some things that are near in order to become closer or nearer to that which truly matters. It's very good. It's very good.
Okay, excellent. Good, a good comment. Thank you. Questions or comments from Carlos?
Yes, I was just going to say there's also the modern Hebrew word leitkarev, which means to bring yourself closer to, so that can be related to the concept of karov.
That's true. That's true. And now that you mention that, so Reb Shmuel and I, we have a chance to learn Pirkei Avot together in a private session. And this week we learned the Mishnah in chapter 1, and I think it's maybe Mishnah 12, which says that Aaron, the high priest, was great because he brought people close to the Torah. And we focused for a moment on how there's a difference between bringing people to the Torah and bringing the Torah to the people. Now, Chabad of Rural Georgia is all about bringing the Torah to the people, because the people are rural, so we've got to travel a far distance. But generally speaking, the concept of bringing the Torah to the people meant, in the Mishnah's text, it meant context. The Mishnah meant something along the lines of watering down the Torah so that people can access it better. However, my observation so far is that people want the non-watered down version. So like Carlos said, lihit karev means make yourself a bit closer. You can, nudge over just a bit closer and get slightly more involved. Okay, thank you, Carlos. Juan, question or comment? No question or comment?
No.
Okay.
No, I think I'm fine. I'm pretty
You're
tired.
fine. I'm not going to pressure you. I'm not going to press you. Okay. Alan, question or comment?
Yeah, I mentioned time before. Time
yes.
is one of those things that is dear, in that when you pray or you commit to services, or the time that we're spending tonight, we are giving up those other things in terms of time.
Absolutely.
So, right, you were saying things that make you go, ah, well, we give up all those in order to participate. So time is a dear thing that we give up.
Absolutely. I am with you 100%. Time is one of those things. The Talmud says about time, and actually one of the most famous Jewish singers of the previous half century, Avraham Fried, made a song about it, which one day, if you ask me for the link, I'll send it to you. It's all in Hebrew, but I'll send it to you anyway. The Talmud says, Adam doeg al ibud domov. A person worries about the loss of his money. Ve'enoi doeg al ibud yomov. But he does not worry about the loss of his days. Then the Talmud comments further, Yom domov choizrim. Money can come back. Yomov einom choizrim. Money at time never returns. And that really adds weight to what Alan just commented, a very valuable comment. People are worried about how they spend their money, but they don't mind to drive the extra hour and a half to Costco.
I guess you've seen us there.
Say that again?
I said, I guess you've seen us there.
Busted, huh?
But I get to spend it with my wife in the car, so it's valuable time.
Exactly. So that's a good response, you know. So there you go. Everybody has also a different way to value their time versus their money, right? How much would a person spend to get their spouse's attention for 2 hours on that drive to Costco? It's worth it.
That's right.
In a way. In another way, maybe something else. Okay, but the idea that people are more comfortable to spend money, to spend time than they are to spend their money.
Yeah, to burn time.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, the greatest cause of time wasting in the past decade and a bit is Netflix. And this is not an advertisement. I'm encouraging you to replace Netflix with my YouTube channel. All right. Okay, Juan, go for it.
When you talk about you care about give the people to the Torah as Moshe Rabbeinu did, or Torah to the people, sometimes means that the Torah is just one, and you have to approach to the Torah and do whatever you have to do. But many people just take the Torah and take whatever they think fit for them from the Torah and make their own Torah. So I don't know how interpret the issue to take the Torah to the people. Actually, in the Pirkei Avot, they talk about the fence around the Torah. The fence around the Torah is to keep it. Is to keep the Torah as it is. It's what I understand. You can change anything. It's everything is as it is, and I think it's a way. It's a question. I don't know if you have any consideration about that.
Okay, so let me see if I understood the question well. What you're saying, what you're saying is that there are people out there who change the Torah for what it is originally presented to be.
Yeah, if the people go to the Torah is there as it is. But when you take the Torah to the people take whatever and they likes to take from the Torah. No, the Torah as is. Not the time, and you know what I'm talking about. It's that you can interpret pretty much an interpretation because it's not a translation or something like this. It's an interpretation, and each one take whatever is comfortable for him about the Torah. No, whatever the Torah is. I don't know if I'm wrong or no.
So for this, Juan, there is a joke. There is a story from Chelm. Are you ready for a Chelm story? We all know Chelm. Chelm is the typical city somewhere in Poland or something, where everyone seems to not have been the brightest tools in the shed. The problem, of course, is that Chelm is a real city, and Chelm had like a prominent rabbi who wrote a couple of good books and are said to be quite smart. I've never read the books, nor do I know the name of the rabbi. That's what I know, that the town exists. But nevertheless, this is the town that we make fun of. So take this story in good spirit. In Chelm, there was a very tall tower with a clock on it. There's a special name for these kind of towers. You know, like Big Ben in London. But a watchtower, what's it called?
Clock tower.
Say it again?
A clock tower.
A clock tower. Okay, that's a good name for such a tower. Okay, so there's the clock tower, and generally the clock is at the top of the tower. All the people of Chelm came together in a meeting and they said, why should we have to crane our necks so high to see the clock? Let's bring the clock down, and then we won't have to work so hard to see the time. So the meeting is convened, or not convened, the meeting is concluded, and they bring the clock down, and time passes. They discover a new phenomenon. Now, instead of all the people walking past the clock and correcting their own personal watch, now everybody is correcting the town clock.
That's good. Very good.
It's an issue. It's an issue. This is a problem, right? What's the problem? The problem is that when the Torah is not a stable thing, when the Torah is not set, rather we are the set ones. We are the ones that are ultimatum status. We are the ones that are set in stone. And we come to the Torah and we rotate its hands, our hands and the minute hands. So then what effectively happens is that Yom Kippur is no longer on the 10th day of Tishrei. Now it's on the, 9th day of Tishrei, because it's convenient for me. You know, this year was a difficult setup for Purim. Purim was on Friday, and Shabbos immediately follows. But there is a mitzvah on Purim to have a feast. And it's difficult because you have to find a loophole to make a feast that continues into the night, but doesn't interfere with Shabbos. So what are some, and similarly, you have to hear the Megillah on Thursday night and Friday morning, right? But you're going to gather people twice, both on Thursday night and then on Friday night again for services. So people rotated the hands of the clock. You know, these kind of things happen, whatever, they happen. So the Mishnah is kind of telling us what's going to be the set in stone thing. Are you going to be set in stone? Or is your focus going to be on the Torah, and you're going to come to the Torah? And you're going to come to the Torah and see what the Torah has to share with us. You know, that's a that's something that we can learn from the thing. Okay, it's 6:56, and I can't hold you guys up late because that would be that wouldn't be nice. So we're going to make some announcements, and then I'll hang around for some questions and answers that follow. And also, we didn't get any feedback and questions and comments from Barbara and Martin, nor did we get questions and comments from Mal. So we will, after the announcements and whoever needs to go can go, then we'll hang out just a bit longer. Announcement number one is that if you are a North Georgian Jew, this Sunday, 11 to 12 at the Southwest Bank.
South State.
Don't worry, the GPS will get me to the right place. Just my head is going to have to remember the right name. At the South State Bank parking lot on Sunday between 11 and 12 p.m. There will be 11 and 12 a.m. 11 a.m. to 12 midday. There will be a Pesach drive-through coordinated together with the Jewish community of Blue Ridge. And I will be there, Be'ezras Hashem, with Hashem's help, together with my wife. So I know you guys are all hoping to meet her again. So be there or be a circle. And we will be handing out, guess what? Circle matzahs. That's right. So definitely be there. And the circle, we will give you a round, handmade, artisanal, delicious matzah. And that will be a gift from Rabbi and Mrs. Markovits to every Jew in the entire state of Georgia. And we are so far doing a great job at distributing matzah. If you are on Instagram, raise your hand if you're on Instagram. No one. Okay, that's okay. So if you're on Instagram, you can watch us at Chabad Rural Georgia. If you're on Facebook, you can also watch us on Chabad Rural Georgia. And we've been doing some great things. And this is also an announcement with our junior rabbis who have been spending a lot of time in different cities in the South. So now Robert, Juan, and Carlos are like, what do you mean? What about us? They're coming. They're coming. With God's help, on Friday, they'll be in Macon, if I am correct with my scheduling. Maybe they change the schedule on me. That's okay. And then Sunday and Monday, they'll also be in the Macon area in preparation of our grand Passover Seder, which is the third and final announcement. It's not the final one. The third announcement is that we're making a Passover Seder at the Marriott City Center Hotel in Macon, and everybody is able and invited to join us. Registration is open, chabadruralgeorgia.com/Passover. You probably got an email about it. And you can also book a hotel there for the night so that you don't have to drink and drive, which is not encouraged ever. Okay, so that's announcement number 3. And announcement number 4, and this is for sure the most important announcement of all of them, is there is an important thing to do regarding Pesach, and that is to sell your chametz. Okay, so Juan is nodding, he knows what it means. Alan is nodding, Martin probably nodded too. There is a, Reb Shmuel, I don't know if you nodded. You nod? You nodded. It's important that a Jew does not own chametz on Pesach. Why is it important? Because it says in the most popular book of all time, it says in the Bible that a Jew should not own chametz on Pesach. It also says a Jew shouldn't eat chametz on Pesach. I can't stop you from eating, but I can, whatever, I can't stop you from anything really, but I can encourage you both not to eat and also to sell your chametz. How do you sell your chametz? So if you log on to our website, it's chabadruralgeorgia.com/content/sale chametz. Pretty sure that's it. You can sell your chametz. Believe it or not, what I'm going to do this the second we hang up so that it'll be available. We're going to have a, it'll be chabadruralgeorgia.com/chametz, CHAMETZ, and you can sell your chametz on our website. I personally will not be doing the sale. I will be passing on your permission to sell the chametz to a competent rabbi who will take care of it for us. I will be selling my chametz the very same way. I advise that you participate for multiple reasons, and that's it. Okay, so where are we up to now? I think we're done with announcements. That was fun. So 7:01, we finished in good time. Sei gesund, have a good Shabbos, and I look forward to hanging out with all of you guys